Hey guys, my name is Lockridge, CLEP College, and today I'm going to do a little reaction video to one of Nathan Young's videos. Nathan Young is a YouTuber, and he tried to graduate with a bachelor's degree in 1 year. Unfortunately, he was not successful in that attempt, but I'm just going to react to his most popular video. It was his fourth diary video where he talks about DSST and CLEP and those types of things. I'm just gonna give my quick opinion on this and just react to it. If you guys enjoy this video, please leave a like, consider subscribing, and the link to CLEP College is in the description. And we're gonna get right into this.
Hey guys, this is Nathan Young. This is video diary number 4. Just so you guys know, a little update on my progress. I will be at 51 credits, I believe, as of 2 weeks from now. So by Thanksgiving, 51 credits. Very excited. This video.
I just wanted to point out real quick that Nathan Young, this particular video was done in 2016, so it was quite a while back. I just want to say, just to provide some context here, as of Nathan Young did another video, I think it was like 9 months ago, where he said that he's trying to go back to obtaining his bachelor's degree. So as of 2020, I do not believe he was able to get the bachelor's degree yet. I just wanted to point that out real quick before we go any further.
Video is going to be about DSST, CLEP, TSEP exams and my experience with them and sort of like the things to know. The video is going to be a little long, so if you want to watch it in 1.5 or 2 times speed, I talk kind of fast, that might get a little jumbled, but I recommend watching videos in a slightly faster speed. That's in the...
Okay, Nathan Young, I highly disagree with you on speeding up videos because while it can help sometimes, I just don't think it's good to speed up a video because it's very, very easy to miss something. Whenever you're giving a speech or just whatever it is, it's easy to miss certain information or mishear information if you speed it up. I just wouldn't recommend it. Again, that's just me, but just wanted to say that real quick.
YouTube, settings on the videos. It's super handy. So, I'm going to dive right in. I have my outliner in front of me, and here I go. So this is about what the CLEP DSST TSEP experience is like, how to prepare, and also how to deal sort of with the mid-test freakout and what you might experience with your school when you go to take them. So first...
Now, my experiences with CLEP and DSST have been very interesting. Both of them have been overall positive. I'm not going to say that it's easy, because CLEP and DSST, both of them take a lot of time and effort and energy to do. They can get you through college significantly faster. Like I talked about in CLEP College, it is possible to graduate with an accredited bachelor's degree in 1 year, or potentially less. It's just certainly difficult to do, and it's not for everyone, but still, CLEP and DSST, even if you guys are not able to graduate in exactly a year or less, at the very least, it will significantly help you, though, by helping you to obtain additional credit, though. So I'm really interested to see what Nathan has to say about all 3 of these.
How to check for CLEP, DSST, and TSEP exams. I'm going to put the link to those sites in the video. I point down here like that's where the thing is, but that's where the thing is for now. Maybe in a year YouTube will change it and like put it over there.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying there, Nathan, because YouTube does all kind of weird nonsense all the time. The description box so far has stayed the same, so thankfully you're right about that.
Whatever. Anyway, so first of all, I really recommend setting up your degree plan first. That way you aren't taking tests, which do take time and money, that don't really count towards anything. So passing them can make you feel really cool, and I had a couple that I thought for a minute that I had passed that weren't going to count toward my degree plan through crappy circumstances, but actually I was able to work it out and they applied. It felt cool to pass a test, but it was kind of crappy to be like, what? I don't get those credits?
I can definitely understand exactly what Nathan said right there, and I definitely agree with that. Because, okay, so what I highly recommend, guys, is when you're going to the certain college, like Excelsior, for example, talk with your academic advisor and look at your roadmap. Figure out, okay, what class or sorry, which CLEP or DSST exam or whatever it is will satisfy this requirement or this requirement or this requirement, because it's very, very easy to over test. And by that I mean that you take every single CLEP and DSST there is, and then you find out, oh shoot, the particular degree that I chose actually doesn't have is not going none of its requirements, or very few of them, are going to be satisfied by the test I took. So I do highly recommend looking at your roadmap, consulting with your academic advisor, and figuring out exactly what test that you can take that will satisfy the various different requirements. That's very, very important, and I definitely agree with what Nathan said just now.
Luckily, I did, but I like take the time, look at your degree plan, look what will work, and then match up those tests to your degree plan. Usually, the college will have a course catalog and show that a course is available by taking a CLEP or DSST. Um, if not, just match up the names of the test as closely as you can with the name of the class, and then call an academic advisor at the school and just double check. Then, and this is a thing I've learned the hard way, call another academic advisor and double check that information.
Okay, something I want to say right there. First of all, I do agree with him about what he just said, that if you're kind of in doubt about whether or not the particular CLEP or DSST test will satisfy a certain requirement, trying to match up the names as close as possible. That does apply in a lot of different scenarios, but not in every case. And I can give you a perfect example of that. When I was going through college and I was doing my academic journey, I ran into this one thing, and it was called public speaking. Okay. Um, Now, I'm not gonna really brag here, but I don't really think I'm a bad speaker. I think that my speaking, communicating ability is pretty decent. So I went in, and for DSST, public speaking comes in two different sections. Okay, you have the written test, which, by the way, I just wanted to say, just to clarify with everybody. CLEP and DSST, all the tests are multiple choice questions. So you don't have to type in the exact answer or anything. You have to just choose from multiple choice, and that significantly increases your odds of even guessing if you have to. Of course, you need to study for it, and I mean, I'm not saying just guess your way through it, of course. I'm saying you need to study the best you can, but if you have to guess, you have something like either a 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 chance. I believe CLEP has 5 questions, 5 different choices per question, and DSST has 4. At least that's from what I can remember. They CLEP and DSST, they may change their tests from time to time, and they may change the format that the tests are given in, but there are always going to be multiple choice, and that is very, very helpful. Anyway, when it came to public speaking, I did that with a DSST, and there was a little bit of a problem there. So I passed the multiple choice part, no problem. Then I went to the public speaking section of it, where you actually give a speech in front of a computer. They give you a microphone, and they give you a certain subject to talk about. It really, and at least from what they told me, it's not the subject matter that they judge. They're talking about it is your speaking ability. And so I did public speaking, like say 3 or 4 times, and each time I passed the multiple choice part, but they actually sent the speech itself to be graded to somewhere like the Philippines, they said. And every time they did not give me a good score, and so they wouldn't let me pass. And there was no way for me to get past the public speaking requirement. Then it turns out, okay, so like Nathan was just saying, typically you can find a test to satisfy a certain requirement with a similar name. For instance, public speaking would have satisfied that particular requirement. But in my particular case, though, there was this one particular course that was through Liberty University. It was called Information Literacy. Um, what was so interesting to me about that particular thing, though, is when it comes to the public speaking requirement, you can actually I was actually able to satisfy that requirement through this through the Liberty University, this particular exam that they had. And I mean, let's be honest, guys. The sorry, guys. And actually, it wasn't information literacy. Sorry, I got a little mixed up there. It was something else. It had something to do. I think it was business something. It was business something. It had something to do with like business communication. I think it was. Sorry, through Liberty University. I do mention it in one of my videos, so you can go watch one of my older CLEP College videos for that. Um, what was so interesting about this is the title of this particular course, not really a course, it was just a little test that I had to do. It had basically nothing to do, at least in terms of title, with the public speaking, and yet it still satisfied the requirement. So I do agree, and Nathan is right to certainly an extent about what he just said, but just remember, guys, in certain scenarios, though, a particular course or exam that doesn't sound like that it would apply can actually satisfy certain requirements. Like he said, you need to check with your academic advisor, find out exactly what would satisfy the requirement. I believe it was business communication, business 300, I think, that ended up satisfying my public speaking requirement.
Remember that these people are human, and as much as it seems like we should be able to take exactly whatever information they give us factually, we can't. Double check. So here's how to take practice tests and see if you can pass. CLEP tests, you can go to the CLEP website, and again, I'm going to put the link in the description, and you can purchase the official this year, or I think the 2017 book might be out either now or soon, as of this recording. You can purchase the official test book from that website, which is what I recommend. Now, the book itself is not very expensive. I think I got the entire, you can purchase individual test books for like $10, or you can purchase the comprehensive book for like $80. Since there are 20 something tests, I definitely recommend purchasing the comprehensive book. It's like $70 or $80 for the whole thing. I bought it right from there. I didn't get it from Amazon. I checked on Amazon and it was like the exact same cost anyway at the time. So your mileage may vary.
Something I want to say about that. So I'm pretty sure Nathan Young is referring to the official College Board CLEP guide. They show it on their website. It's one of the first things that you see, I believe, on College Board, at least the CLEP section. One thing I wanted to say there is, of all the study materials that I was able to get in order to, and that I looked at when I was going through college, the official CLEP guide, at least that College Board one, I'll be completely honest, it ended up helping me the least out of all the materials that of all the study materials. And there's a big reason for that. Um, that particular book is entirely just practice tests. And yes, that is certainly helpful once you understand the material. If you're familiar with the material or if you have some knowledge of it, then you can just take the practice tests and you can just learn from the tests. And that can be helpful. But let's pretend, though, that you don't know the subject. Let's pretend that you are not familiar at all with the particular subject. Okay? In that case, the book is basically not going to help you very much at all. That's why I did a combination of it. I looked at some of the questions from the official CLEP book, and then I also went to this other particular company, and this company was called REA. And what's so interesting about REA, and it's not just REA actually, it's REA, Pass Your Class, Ace the CLEP. Those are three different companies, and I have their links in the descriptions of most of my videos. What's interesting about them is they actually explain to you the subject. Okay, it's like a actual textbook. It's really they go in depth and they provide a whole lot of information, and they also have practice tests in them. In addition, I highly recommend watching Crash Course. I think I did mention them in one of my older CLEP College videos, and they have a they really are a crash course really in when it comes to various different subjects. They're very good at cramming a lot of information into like a 10-minute video, and they're an absolutely amazing channel. So those are what I would recommend. I can understand why somebody would be really interested in like the official College Board CLEP book. It's just for me personally, it did not help me that much, but I can understand though why it would help other people though.
DSSTs. So you get the book, and you can take the test in the book, and the answer keys are right at the end of the test for every single test in the book. How I did them was that I got a notebook and I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever to like 70. And I just went through and I took the exam. I didn't time myself. A couple of those exams took me like a long time. I stopped in the middle to like Google some things I didn't know about, which I don't recommend doing at first. I didn't time myself. And so anyway, you sit with the book, take the test. It's just practice, right? Um,
That is certainly a way that you can do it. I mean, it's not exactly what I would recommend, but this is kind of like on an individual basis thing. So, for instance, for Nathan Young here, he was able to take the tests a certain way and he was able to pass them. I took the tests a certain way and I passed them. So it just depends on like the individual preference there, the way that you study.
for the DSST, you can actually take the practice tests right in their website on Prometric. And it costs $5 to take a practice DSST. Realistically, that's not very much money. So $5 to take the test exam to make sure that you're not going to go below $100 to take the actual exam seems okay. Remember that the practice questions are like slightly out of date. So it's more about testing your knowledge of the subject matter itself rather than knowing how to answer the exact questions in the tests in the book or on.
Okay, Nathan, I'm going to have to stop you right there. So, what he said is 100% true if you are just looking at, say, the official CLEP guide. 100% true. Those questions are terribly out of date, and a lot of them do not perfectly reflect the actual test, really, at least from my experience. Whereas, say, the REA books, the Pass Your Class books, Ace the CLEP, all those books the subject matter that they have and the questions they have are shockingly similar. Of course, they're not exact, but they are much more similar to the questions that were on the actual test, at least in my experience.
On the Prometric website. So having taken all those practice tests, I've taken a practice test every single time before I've gone to take the actual test. Having taken the practice test and then taking the actual test, I can tell you that maybe 5% of all the questions that I've answered in practice tests, I've actually seen show up slightly reworded or something on the actual test. So
I would say for me personally, that ratio was significantly higher. I would say like maybe 60 to 70% of the questions that I saw in the REA books, the Ace the CLEP books, Pass Your Class books, of course, not exact word for word, but the same exact subject matter, same types of questions, and in certain ways, it's just the reasoning that you would use to to get through those questions in the practice exams were the same ones that were on the real test. They were very, very similar. Not exact, of course, but I would say that it's the best way to prepare, at least in my opinion. I would not recommend the College Board book unless you just want to just have as many questions as possible to just read and just have a much broader understanding of all the different questions. If you just want to have more practice tests, then sure, that's great. That's a good idea.
it's very much about subject matter. It's very much not about those specific questions. What the questions do give you is the type of material, the concepts that will be covered within the test. So within, say, the management information systems test, there were several questions in the practice test that led me to believe having a better understanding of how server systems work, how DNS settings work, how mail exchange servers work, would put me ahead of the curve on the actual exam. That was correct. So it wasn't, what is the DNS server route, blah, 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 blah. Being able to answer that one specific question was not super helpful, but understanding what is a DNS server and how does that function within the hierarchy of like technology, that was super helpful on the actual exam.
I can definitely agree with what he just said there, and it's another reason why I do not recommend only looking at the say the official CLEP guide exam questions, at least that particular book question, because you're only going to see like the question and the answer unless you do additional research yourself, which Nathan says that he did Google it and stuff. You cannot pass a CLEP test. Okay, excluding pure luck. Okay, you're pretty much not going to pass a CLEP test without actually studying for it. In other words, if you just memorize the questions and answers, you're not going to pass it unless it's just pure luck. Okay? You need to actually study for the thing. You actually study for the thing, and you need to become somewhat familiar with the subject matter itself. For example, all the CLEP history exams, which there are, I think, like maybe 4 of them that I can remember. They have the Western Civilization ones. They also have 2 for the history of the United States. Um, all those exams, those have a lot to, the questions have a lot to do with memorization of dates and events and timelines. And if you just look at these particular tests, what you're going to find is the particular questions and the dates they talk about do have to do with the actual subject, but they're not nearly enough, though, for you to have a good enough understanding of how the subject works, though. And that's kind of a problem, I think, with the College Board book. Okay, it can certainly be helpful in that it has significantly more questions, and it has questions from the different all the different CLEP subjects. But it's also a problem though because it doesn't actually teach you anything. It doesn't have like an actual. It doesn't have any part for you to read. It doesn't have any information in it necessarily. It's just the tests themselves, the practice tests. So I would highly recommend, like I said, REA, Pass Your Class, Ace the CLEP. Those are all amazing companies. They have plenty of stuff for you to read in them. They get you familiar with the subject quick, and they also have the practice tests as well.
So practice tests give you the concepts that will be contained within the actual exam. When you're taking the test, write down or copy the questions or like mark them or something that you don't know how to answer. So like you can just guess, that's fine. You're always gonna kind of have to do that at some point. But mark down those, like highlight those questions or copy them, and then literally just Google search those questions. Then spend like 10 minutes learning about sort of the stuff that pops up. So like in the case of the DNS server, he was asking me a question about DNS servers and the management information systems test. Well, I don't really know anything about DNS servers. Well, I didn't. I know a lot about them now. Um, so when I Googled the question, it gave me the answer. Like it was on a forum, and I looked through there and I saw that here's the answer to that question, basically. But what I did instead of just finding that exact answer was to say, what are the components that make up, what are the concepts that they're trying to teach me within this question? What do they assume that I know? They assume I know what a DNS server is, and they assume that I know how traffic flows to and from a DNS server, and what the purpose of a DNS server is. Well, I didn't know any of those things, so I just spent 20 minutes learning about DNS servers and how they fit in the hierarchy of technology. And then on the actual exam, there were several questions about those types of things, but I knew now the concepts around that piece of technology and how it sort of all fit in. So just remember, you can do a Google search and then you can learn the concept itself.
There is one problem though about what Nathan just said though. Now, okay, let me just say a little bit of an example. So let's just pretend that you're doing this particular CLEP or DSST test, okay? And let's pretend that whatever concept is in this particular thing is actually pretty hard to understand and complex. You can use Google, yes, and Google is definitely a fantastic resource. Internet searching for certain things is great. The thing is, There are certain concepts and certain things that you would have to understand, though, that are pretty much only in these types of guides or in the test itself. There's just certain information that is very difficult to find unless you watch the particular video or unless you, say, read this particular book, this particular study guide, or take this particular test. Kind of one really bizarre example. When I was taking the CLEP biology exam, it's 6 credits, by the way, and I did eventually pass that one. There was this one question that kept on popping up, and it really, really bothered me. It was basically asking me to describe what particular part of this plant, to basically describe this one particular part of a plant, and it gave me several different choices as to what this particular section of this plant was. And I'm sorry, it was actually an animal, I think. And they said this is a fictional creature, okay? And it was literally impossible to answer that particular question with the parameters that they gave me and with the particular choices they gave me. So every once in a while you are going to run into just a crazy question that doesn't make too much sense. Thankfully, though, practically every single one of these exams has a whole lot of questions. Like I think the DSST ones have some of them over 100, and the CLEP exams are usually around 100. Some of them can get significantly longer, though. I believe the Western Civilization was like 120 something questions. So thankfully there is a decent amount of wiggle room there. And if you miss a couple questions, you don't have to necessarily worry about that because you can still pass the exam. So my point here is there's just certain information, certain concepts that you can't just Google. You can't just take the quick way through it. You actually have to you have to actually sit down and read the book, look at the video, and invest some time into the particular subject. So what he said is true for a lot of different things, but not everything, though, because, well, there are just certain things you can't just Google and find out quick.
So, for me personally, if I got a 70% or higher on a practice exam, I was like, I'm ready. I'm good to go. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to take the test. I've passed every test that I've taken. I've taken about 12 so far, and 2 more in the next month or so. So, if I got above a 70, I just walked in and took the test, and some of them I studied not at all. I took the practice test, got a 70% or higher, and went and took the test and passed the test. The end.
Okay, Nathan. In a way, you can be right about that, because there's certainly a chance, like if you're really, really familiar with the subject already, you don't necessarily have to study as much. Of course, I would recommend studying some, even for a subject that you really know, just to refresh your memory. That's just what I would personally recommend.
I took no extra time to do anything. I didn't Google search anything. I did whatever. That was my personal like litmus test. Your mileage may vary again, but that's what I did. Here's something I want to say about that very specifically. I would consider myself a critical thinker, and I have spent time honing what that means to me. I would consider myself having really nurtured purposefully the ability to grasp concepts quickly, like whole concepts. So if you're talking about a particular item like celery, then I don't think about celery. I think about vegetables. I think about colors. I think about flavors, textures. I don't just think about celery. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So grasping the whole concept. Celery is a food. It's crunchy. It's what does that mean, right? Like, well, how does this fit in here? How does that fit in there? So grasping concepts as opposed to individual things.
Okay, Nathan, so I can agree with you about the concepts, and that's very, very important. And having a critical thinking mind is extremely valuable. There is one thing I want to say, though, and this is something that I personally, that I can actually tell all of you guys from experience during the CLEP and DSST exams. It is perfectly possible to overthink a certain question. And that has happened to me before, that I'm sure that's happened to just about everybody that's taken these types of exams. Basically what they'll do is they'll ask you a particular question, and whatever the subject matter is, the question is designed in a way to make you think too much, because sometimes the answer is actually relatively simple or easy, but because of added language in the particular question, they make you think, okay, so this is actually a lot more complicated. I actually have to think about this more. Or it can also be a case where it's actually a pretty simple question, but you start second guessing yourself then once you start thinking about it a little bit too much. For example, the solution to the question could be extremely simple, the answer could be extremely simple, but then there's a little thought in the back of your head, and you go, wait a second, what if they're actually saying this? What if they're using this word in a slightly different way? And as soon as that happens, you start getting a little bit jumbled up, and you can potentially waste too much time on one question, again, like 1 out of 100 questions, or you can end up making a mistake and choosing the wrong one. And that is certainly possible. It has happened to me before, and it's definitely something we'd want to avoid. Overthinking can be a big problem. Critical thinking is a great one. Critical thinking is a good thing to have, and being able to understand a complex concept or something like that is very, very good too. I just wanted to point out real quick, just be careful about overanalyzing or overcomplicating something that's actually pretty simple, because these tests are designed to make you second guess yourself and to make you think that way. So critical thinking is good, just make sure not to overthink something that can actually be pretty simple.
I've really spent time building that up in my life. And it means it's really helped me take these tests, because even if I don't know the answer to something, and I've run across this several times now, if the answer is actually factually wrong, which has happened to me many times, I've read an answer and been like, none of these answers are correct. I know exactly what the answer is,
I've been in that exact same position, Nathan. I definitely understand.
and it's not available here. In fact, the one that I know that they want me to say is wrong. So I've dealt with that, and then in like the comment section at the end, I'm like, hey, question 27 is wrong. You need to update that. So two things based on concept grasping. One is that reading the exact wording of the question has allowed me to say, well, these words literally mean this. And by definition, these answers run counter to that word. That means that those cannot be the answer. So, so things like, since the whole theory, or even if it's factually wrong, so you can kind of take it like this: if the whole theory of of this field is all fruits are sweet, and the question is saying, like, that's the theory of the field that you're talking about. All fruits are sweet. That's the theory. And then the question you find within that test is, where is sour fruit located? Well, the concept is there are no sour fruits. Now, we know that's factually incorrect, but it doesn't matter. One of the answers is there are no sour fruits. It doesn't matter that it's not right. That is the answer for this test.
Yeah, you see, when it comes to any of these tests, sometimes what I like to do was I would put myself kind of in the position of, okay, if I'm writing this test and I'm intentionally trying to mess somebody up, because see, the people that write that author these tests and the people that actually come up with the questions and stuff, they're not saying, okay, somebody's going to take this test and I want to make sure it's easy enough so that they pass and that they have a great life, blah blah blah. They're thinking, what they're thinking is, what's the best possible way for me to seriously mess this person up and make sure they make a mistake. So what they do is they word the questions in a certain way, like what Nathan just said here, that will make you second guess yourself and actually think, okay, so is it this? Is it that? What's going on? I'm so confused. They do that on purpose. And so what I would do sometimes is when I came across a particularly difficult question or a question that didn't make any sense, I would kind of put myself in the mindset of the test writer, whoever is coming up with the test, and I would think, okay, so um, okay, if I was a test writer, how would I try to mess up the test taker? And in truth, both with the practice exams and the real exam, that has actually helped me a lot to actually pass and answer a lot of questions correctly. So I can definitely understand what Nathan's saying here. The way that they write the tests is intentionally designed to make you mess up. But you can certainly overcome that, though.
So not it just that's the concept that the field is based on. I ran into that many times, especially in like human resources is almost all opinion based. Lots of managerial stuff opinion based, sales management opinion based. Like these things don't have hard fast rules, they're all based on concepts.
Okay, something I need to say about the opinion-based questions. There are a lot of questions that I've encountered throughout my academic journey in both the CLEP and DSST. And what's so interesting about those is sometimes they have questions that will specifically they really are opinion based, where they kind of ask for your opinion, except it's not really your opinion that they're asking for. They want you to basically say what the answer is, in other words, what their opinion is. So they use this particular type of, almost want to call it twisted logic, to make you think, okay, so it's not really my opinion, it's your opinion. That's kind of what you need to understand. Because they're not asking what your opinion is at all, because they're the test writers, and they're asking you a particular question. Of course they know the answer to it. So sometimes you have to tweak your mindset sometimes to be able to answer some of these questions. And like Nathan is saying, um, sometimes these questions are just whacked out crazy. Sometimes they make absolutely no sense, but you can overcome them, as difficult as it can be and tricky as it can be sometimes.
And concepts that were come up with by people, and people are fallible, and so that stuff changes, and sometimes it changes rapidly. There were a couple of questions in my computer systems one that like were asking about certain things at Apple or Amazon or pieces of tech, and like those things weren't true anymore. So remember that some of this stuff is a little out of date and some of it might be factually inaccurate, but think about it from the concept of the field, not from that thing, not from the factual. So your job is actually, to sort of sum that all up, your job is a little counterintuitive here. It is not to show in the test that you are an expert in the subject matter. So like computer information systems or management information systems. It wasn't to show that I was an expert in management information systems. My job within that test is to show that I contain the information that a college class would give me, even if it's not actually right anymore. So being very familiar, that being said, being very familiar with the subject matter usually will get you there, which is where I've ended up. Okay, moving on. This is a long video. How to deal with mid-test panic. So at some point during the test, you're going to have the thought, what if I fail this test? And like I said, I've taken a dozen of them, and I'm going to take more. And every single test that I've taken, no matter how well I was doing, I just, like I'd go on a string of 3 or 4 answers where I kind of didn't know for sure if I was getting it right or whatever. And I just would be like, I'm going to fail this test. What if I fail this test? And I started coming up with all this, these scenarios in my mind. I'm going to have to pay for this again. It's going to take me so long. It's going to throw me off my whatever. And I just started freaking out. And every time I've just had to take a minute and stop. Don't look at the computer screen for a minute. Just breathe and remember that you can take the test again. It's not the end of the world if you fail, and it's not a catastrophe.
Okay, I would definitely. Oh, okay, his eyes are going that way. I would definitely have to agree with what Nate said there, and because for me, now obviously this is different depending on the person. For me personally, the mid-test panic was a little bit different, really, because for me it wasn't as much okay, of course, when I encountered some difficult questions or questions I didn't understand, of course that would get me worried. It would get anybody worried. What I thought was interesting though is, and this may just be me, other people may deal with this, I'm not sure, but something that would happen different times was I was doing a particular test that I know the subject matter very, very well. I studied for it for 2 or 3 weeks or longer, for instance, every history exam that I did. And I knew the subject matter, I understood the questions, I knew what the answers were, and yet sometimes I would think, you know what? What if they tricked me, say, 10 questions ago? What if they tricked me on this particular question? What if I didn't understand this particular word right? And that type of self-doubt is kind of designed by the test makers. They do that intentionally. They want you to basically second guess yourself, and they want you to think, okay, maybe I made a mistake and maybe I need to go back and change something. In my personal experience, your first gut instinct reaction, whatever your answer is, tends to be correct. Because sometimes if you dwell on a question too much, like I was saying before, you can overthink it. It can be a real simple question, and sometimes you can overthink it and choose the wrong answer. That is really, really important. Again, critical thinking is really good. Analyzing things and finding a deeper meaning in it is good. But when it comes to these tests, though, the questions tend to be sometimes on the simpler side. They just make it look complicated. But I definitely understand what he's saying then.
Fail, and it's not a catastrophe. It's just a pain in the ass.
That is definitely true, Nathan, because now, let me tell you guys, there is, it really, really hurts when you do fail a CLEP exam. And I have failed CLEP exams in the past. Um, I passed a lot of them on the first try, but there definitely were some that really, really were a pain. For instance, for me, biology was an absolute total pain when I was going through it. It took me like maybe 3 tries to get through biology, and it was incredibly frustrating because I knew the subject very, very well, and I was not able to get through it for quite a while. So not pass taking a while to pass that was really frustrating. I did eventually pass biology. It's just it was such a pain. I can definitely understand the frustration there, but like Nate said, though, you can retake the test. You can do it again and again if you need to. And I think what's really important here is with certain subjects that you don't understand or that are more difficult for you, again, figure out which exams that you actually need, which ones that will benefit you, and which ones will satisfy your different requirements. And when you find one that will satisfy it, even if it's a really difficult one, just stay persistent with it. Because even if it takes you multiple tries on that particular exam, it will still cost less than if you just went to the college itself and say, went there and took the classes for 3 months. It's still going to be cheaper and most likely faster as well, even if it takes you multiple tries.
That's it. Like, it's just a pain. But it's not gonna, you're not done. It's not over. You're gonna have to take a little time, do a little studying, and you're gonna have to come back in a little bit. And that's all. It's gonna suck. It's gonna feel bad if you fail. But you just have to come back. And that's it. It's not a catastrophe. So do your best. Pass or fail. You will then know what you need to do next.
That is one thing that I 110% agree with, because there were certain subjects where I thought I knew and understood the particular subject matter. The best scenario, the best example I can remember, there was this one DSST exam, and it was called Introduction to Geography, okay? I'll just tell you guys right now, Introduction to Geography has basically nothing to do at all with geography, okay? It has entirely to do with like social concepts. And that may sound like total nonsense, but I promise you guys, the DSST exam for Introduction to Geography is completely, totally different than what it sounds like. So with that particular exam in particular, I looked at geography as much as I could. I studied everything that I could on the regular subject, and then I went and took the exam and I realized, okay, I know nothing about the subject because what Introduction to Geography is nothing to do with geography at all. So after I took it the first time, then I realized what I needed to study. Then I went and I got other books, and I was able to pass it. I think it was 2 attempts later. So he's certainly right about that. Even when you fail a particular exam, you know in your mind the types of questions that they'll ask, and you'll be better prepared next time because you'll know what to expect.
That's it. And then just trust your gut and keep going. So, okay, here's some more like super practical how to register and take the tests and how your college probably has no idea what you're talking about. So, oh my God, call ahead. They probably have a massive empty testing center with a bunch of computers that no one is ever using.
That is certainly true. There have been a couple of times that I went to the CLEP or DSST testing centers. Usually these are at like the technical colleges, or in DSST's case, it was at Georgia Gwinnett College. That's where I went to take the DSST exams. And several times, yeah, sometimes there was a couple other people. Typically, though, I was in one big room with like 1,000 computers, and I was just alone in the room. Not too many people seem to take advantage of CLEP and DSST. In my case, I was not only able to get a few credits from it, I was actually able to graduate. So, with the accredited bachelor's degree.
I've been into 3 different schools now to take my tests, and no one, they have over a dozen to 2 dozen computers in there and multiple proctor rooms, and no one is using them. 3 people is the most people I've ever seen in any of those rooms, and they could hold 20 people at a time. And so your school is not packed with test takers. In fact, every school that I've taken these tests at, the proctors don't know what I'm talking about. So when I say, hey, I need to schedule a DSST, they're like, what's a DSST? I've had to help my proctors sign in to like the DSST or CLEP like testing environment.
Oh, there's actually something. Okay, agree with what he said, first of all, totally. Second of all, there's a little story. When I went to Georgia Gwinnett College to the DSST, where I would take the DSST exams, they had this computer problem where right after you log in, it said error every single time. What you're supposed to do is at least this particular glitch that they were having, you had to exit out the program and come back in, and then you had to do it again. And apparently it was only a problem that particular testing center was having. They may have fixed it now, I don't know. But for a little while, though, I was kind of that particular testing center's little technical guy while I was there, because I would just go in and I would help them set the thing up. So I can definitely understand what he's saying, though, there about having to help out the proctors. I'm not saying that's how it's going to be for you guys. It depends entirely on the individual place you go to. It's just that the particular testing center I went to, they were having technical difficulties, and it was very, very interesting. I got to be a tech support guy, at least for a couple minutes when I was there.
So be prepared that the people who are helping you take your tests have no freaking clue what they're doing. Just so you know.
That is true. That is definitely true. One of the times when I passed one of the exams, I was trying to print out the results, and their computer had some sort of issue. I'm not exactly sure what it was, where every time they tried to print, the printer prompt would pop up for a fraction of a second, and then it would go away, and you wouldn't have enough time to click the button. And I was somehow able to time it right, so I was able to print out my exam results that said I passed and said that I got 3 more credits. But I find this really interesting what he's saying though, because I experienced the exact same stuff.
Here's another thing. The office will not take credit cards. Just almost guaranteed. It's freaking the worst. So make sure you ask, what is the proctor fee? There's always a proctor fee. So you're going to pay for the test and usually buy the test online. Then you're going to pay for the proctor fee at the school.
Yeah, in my experience, the proctor fee was usually something like maybe $25, typically. Like I was just saying, you pay for the exams online, and then when you go to the actual center, then they charge a separate fee for the proctor fee. So basically, you're they have a proctor fee for you to pay the people that don't know what they're doing. I'm halfway joking about that. Some of the proctors, pretty much every proctor that I dealt with was very nice. That was just the rare exception where the proctors didn't know what they were doing. But yeah, I definitely get what he's saying, though.
Ask, what is the proctor fee? Then when they tell you, go get that much cash and bring that much cash. They're probably going to hand you a receipt that says you're registered for this test, even though you did it online, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to take that to the bursar's office, which is probably going to be on the other end of the school, which is, I'm like literally, I've had to walk a mile across freaking campus to go to the bursar's office, to hand the bursar's office cash over, literally, my hand went over their credit card machine. Like I wanted to slap something. I wanted to slap something.
So thankfully, I never had that experience because every time I went to take a CLEP or DSST exam, they had a separate testing area with a desk and a waiting room, and you can just go up to the lady at the desk and pay the proctor fee, and they would show you and just show you a registration thing, and they would send you into the test room. I did not have this experience. I certainly feel sorry though for Nathan here for having that experience because that does sound like a mess.
But they won't take credit cards. And then they staple a receipt to my test thing, and then I walk back. That's it. Be prepared to be frustrated. Like this.
Frustration does, of course, happen, Nathan. Again, I did not have this type of experience. It may just vary from college to college because the colleges that I went to, at least the places I went to take the exams, um, they always had a desk right there at the testing place, right next to literally just say 10, 15 feet away from the door that leads into the testing area. He's definitely right about the cash, though. They don't. You pay for the test online, credit card, PayPal, whatever you use, and the proctor fee is cash every time. So that is something you have to remember about.
This with the college is painful. It's painful. Um, the time you need to schedule your time. You should schedule your time, and you should be respectful, even though the college doesn't have this crap figured out. But the reality is that your test time doesn't matter at all. There's nobody in the room. Nobody's using these computers. You can test whenever you freaking want to, but you should still call ahead and still schedule an appropriate time. Just to make sure. Just prepare them, right?
Okay, kind of iffy about what he just said there. Because every time that I would do it, I would go to CLEP's website and I would actually schedule a particular date at a particular time, and they have different rules about you can't be this much late. I think you have to arrive within you can only arrive 15 minutes late for the DSST ones. They have different rules about that. You can usually come just early, like however early you want. They usually will let you in. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of iffy about what he just said there. I don't 100% agree with what he just said, but I mean it's just his opinion and it's his take on it.
So then it doesn't matter what time. You can show up whenever and you can take your test whenever, but just be respectful and show up a little early, be on time, be prepared. Oh, one thing to know about the proctor environments. Don't, like, you can't have your cell phone. Don't even wear a watch. Like, like, you can't have your bag. You're going to have to store your bag. Like, don't carry personal crap. You're going to have to empty your pockets. It's whatever. Just don't even bring it in. Just don't even bring it in. Just remember that.
Okay, sharply disagree with him about that because every place that I went to, after you pay the proctor fee and they give you a receipt, they would give you a locker key and you can put whatever the heck you want into this locker. They have something like maybe 30 lockers. I don't know why they have that many, considering that only one or two people ever come to these particular testing centers, but still they have like a whole bunch of lockers. And you can bring study materials, you can bring your phone, you can bring whatever it is you want. to the testing center and say when you're waiting in the line or when you're just waiting to be called in, you can look over some materials real quick, some last minute stuff. Then when they call you, you take your stuff, put it in the locker, take the key with you, and you're fine. Also about the watch. The only problems I have ever had with any of these centers about watches is if it's a smartwatch. I do not have a smartwatch, so I never had that problem. I just had a regular watch. So, yeah, sharply disagree with him on that. It is true that they don't allow pretty much anything into the testing center, but that's for obvious reasons, though, because if you let somebody into a testing center with a phone, they're just going to Google every single question. And there's a chance that they could pass without knowing a single darn thing about the darn subject. So, yeah, that is one thing that, yeah, Nathan, you're not entirely telling the truth about that.
If you have something on you, they're gonna have to take it off unless it's jeans and a t-shirt. Like, um,
Okay, they wouldn't let you take things like say your billfold, your driver's license, sometimes your car keys. It just depends on the sometimes it actually depends on the proctor, really. Um, of course they let you take your glasses and stuff like that. Um, I'm I don't know. I'm just a little bit surprised that he brought that up though, because it has never been a problem for me at all. As long as you don't like try to bring in a laptop or something, you can just actually you could just bring whatever you want and you put it in the locker right before you go into the exam. That's perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with it. Nothing's unusual, Nathan.
we talked about what it's going to cost to take the test. It normally costs between $70 and $80 to get the test online, and then it's between $20 and $30 for the actual proctoring fee. And
Yeah, those numbers have changed a little bit in my experience. I remember CLEP was originally $80 when I first started, and then it changed to 85, and DSST was say around 85 to 90. I remember on one of my recent videos, somebody commented and said that CLEP and DSSTs were like $500. Well, I don't know where you got that figure from. You can just go look at CLEP or GSST and you can clearly see how much the exams are. It's nowhere near that. I promise you that. It's nowhere near that.
remember that you have to use cash at the school, which is stupid. Whatever. That's it. That's everything. This video is incredibly long. Oh my god, 20 minutes. So I hope you watch this in double speed. And that's all for now. If you are curious about anything else on this topic, just ask me in the comments. And if you'd like to know anything about the whole how we're doing college really fast thing, you can ask about that too. Thanks, and hopefully my next video will be on the next week or so.
Okay, so that's basically the end of Nate's video there. So overall, I agree with him on a lot of different things. I do not agree with him on some other things though, particularly when it comes to, say, his choice of books. I personally do not, or just some things about the way he studied for them. I personally do not recommend the official CLEP guide. Yes, it has some test questions in it, but if you're unfamiliar with the subject, it's not going to help you very much at all. Second of all, I definitely disagree with him when it comes to the way that he studies. Again, now this is just an individual thing. Totally just an individual thing. If you're the kind of person that's able to, say, glance at a particular subject and instantly master it or get super lucky, that's perfectly fine. That's just you, and you can study however way you want. For me personally, the way that I would do it is I would schedule the CLEP or DSST exam. I would take several at a time, and I would schedule it, say, 3-4 weeks in advance. And then for that 3-4 weeks, I would study. I would study the books, crash course, whatever. I would study for it. And then I would take the exam, and I would typically do very, very well on it. That's just me. Whatever your study schedule, whatever your plan is, hopefully it works out for you. It's just I did it my particular way. Nathan did it his particular way. Um, Another thing that I have to say is that, okay, so now let's talk about the things I agree with him about. College is difficult. Whether you do the traditional route, which is extremely difficult and extremely costly, or the route of my program, CLEP College, which is significantly faster and easier, it's still not it's not something that is so easy that you can just do it without even thinking about it, though. It does take time and effort and energy to do. It's just significantly easier, though, than, say, going the traditional route and just spending, say, 4 years of your life on it. Because with my program, you can do it in a year or less, or at the very least, it will certainly help you to get additional credits and graduate faster. Even if you don't go with the entire program, still using CLEP and DSST can still help you bypass can certainly help you to achieve credit faster overall. Even if you don't graduate entirely with CLEP or DSST like I was able to, it will still help you. It will still shorten your overall time in college. Let's be honest, the less time you spend in college, the better. So guys, that's going to be the end for this video. This was a very long video. Goodness, it's an hour and 40 seconds now. So I'm going to end this video off here. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, consider subscribing. The link to CLEP College, my ebook, is in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.